Hey everybody, Karsten with Top Go Productions here, and I have another gameplay from Grand Prix Las Vegas for you guys. This game features Robert playing Reaper King, Brionne playing Zozu the Punisher, myself playing Omnath Locus of Mana, and Trystan playing Obzedat Ghost Council. Robert's opening hand contains Sensei's Defining Top, Wing Rattle Scarecrow, Baleful Strix, Mana Vault, Rupture Spire, Creeping Tar Pit, and an island. Trystan had Slaughter Pact, Sensei's Divining Top, Flagstones of Trocaire, Scrubland, and 3 swamps in his opening hand. The cards in my opening hand were Fierce Empath, Beast Within, Kodama's Reach, Chroma's Memorial, and 3 forests. And Brionne mulliganed down to 6 with Furnace of Wrath, Incendiary Command, Grand Melee, Valakut the Molten Pinnacle, and 2 mountains in her hand. Brionne went first, putting Valakut the Molten Pinnacle into play tapped. I went next, playing a forest. Trystan played Flagstones in his turn and cast Sensei's Divining Top. Robert played an island for turn and cast Mana Vault. Brionne played a mountain and passed. I played a forest on my turn. On his turn, Trystan played Scrublands. Robert played a Rupture Spire tapped and tapped his island. Brionne played another mountain on her turn and tapped out to cast Zozu from the command zone. I played a forest and got shocked by Zozu. I then cast Kodama's Reach to put a forest into my hand and another one onto the battlefield, taking another 2 damage. Trystan untapped, played a swamp for turn, getting shocked for 2, and ended. Robert played a Creeping Tar Pit tapped for turn, taking 2, and cast Baleful Strix to draw a card. He then used Mana Vault to cast another Mana Rock, a Darksteel Ingot, and ended his turn. Brionne shocked herself to play Mountain on her turn and tapped out to cast Furnace of Wrath. She then swung at me with Zozu, hitting me for 4 general damage. I played a forest in my turn, taking 4 thanks to Furnace of Wrath. I cast Fierce Empath, fetching up Ulamog the Infinite Gyre and placing him in my hand. At the beginning of his turn, Trystan cast Slaughter Pact, destroying Zozu. He then played a swamp for turn and cast Beseech the Queen. He fetched up Nevinyrral's Disc and passed. Robert untapped, but then tapped out on his upkeep so that he could untap his Mana Vault. He then played a Savage Lance for turn and attacked Brionne with Baleful Strix for 4, ending his turn. Brionne played a Mountain for turn. She then cast Sensei's Divining Top and passed the turn. I untapped, played a Forest for turn and cast Omnath. I then attacked Brionne for 2 with Fierce Empath. Trystan untapped and paid for Slaughter Pact on his upkeep so he didn't lose the game. He then played a Swamp for turn and ended. Robert untapped and cast Top. He then tapped 3 for Mimic Bat and ended his turn. Brionne played a Get to Encampment tapped on her turn. She then cast Incendiary Command, choosing to deal 2 damage to each creature and then 4 damage to Trystan's face, except that it was all doubled with Furnace of Wrath. So it cleared the board, but Trystan imprinted his Strix to Mimic Bat, and I didn't have enough mana to save Omnath. She then passed her turn. Playing a forest for turn, I paid 5 to recast Omnath. I tapped 2 to store some mana on Omnath and passed the turn. Trystan played no lands in his turn and tapped out to cast Obzedat on his turn. He chose to have Robert lose 2 life, and he gained 2 life. At his end step, he exiled Obzedat. Robert missed a land drop on his turn, but decided to match Trystan's and my general with his own Reaper King, tapping out to cast it. He then cast Wing Rattle Scarecrow, using the triggered ability to destroy Furnace of Wrath. Brionne played her 5th mountain for turn, looked at her hand, and passed. I played a Temple of the False God on my turn. I then tapped 7 to cast a Chroma's Memorial, making Omnath Reaper King proof. I put 1 green mana into my mana pool to pump Omnath once and ended the turn. Obzedat entered the battlefield at the beginning of Trystan's turn, sucking 2 life from Robert. He then played a Swamp for turn and went to combat, hitting Brionne with Obzedat for 5. He then cast Life's Finale, clearing the board, Wing Rattle Scarecrow returning thanks to having Persist. He chose Brionne's deck to search, grabbing Dragon Mage, Barbed Shocker, and Kiki to throw into the graveyard. Robert paid for his Mana Vault to untap on his upkeep. He then pinged Trystan for 1 with Wing Rattle Scarecrow and passed. Brionne untapped, cast Obsidian Fireheart, and ended her turn. I untapped, looked at my board, and decided to cast Liege of the Tangled. With haste, I decided to attack Trystan for 8, animating 1 of my forests into an 8/8. Trystan played a Chromatic Lantern on his turn and cast Wrath of God. In response, Brionne placed a Blaze counter on Robert's Rupture Spire, and Trystan passed his turn. Robert took 1 damage at his upkeep, activated Top, and cast Golgari Keyrune. He then cast Far Wanderings to grab just 1 plains and ended. Brionne cast Darksteel Ingot on her turn and passed. I cast Garruk Wildspeaker on my turn, using his first ability to untap Temple of the False God and a forest. I then recast Omnath, paying 7 for him this time. I tapped my last 2 remaining mana to make Omnath a little bigger and attacked Robert, but in response, Robert activated Top to rearrange the top 3 cards of his library. He then tapped Top to draw a card, flipped over Terminus and paid its miracle cost, tucking Omnath to the bottom of my library. Feeling pretty crappy about myself, I passed the turn. Trystan untapped and played a Plains in his turn and recast Obzedat, having him drain 2 life from Robert. He ended his turn. At his upkeep, Robert paid to untap his mana vault. He did nothing else and passed. Brionne played a Great Furnace on her turn, also choosing to do nothing, and passed. On my turn, I cast Green Sun Zenith, paying 7 for X and fetching up Avenger of Zendikar to get 8/0/1 plant tokens with haste, flying, first strike, trample, vigilance, and protection from black and red thanks to Akroma's Memorial. I used up Groog's loyalty counters to activate his Overrun ability, but in response, Brionne cast Chaos Warp to shuffle the Akroma's Memorial back into my library, killing my hopes and dreams. I flipped a Caged Sun off the Chaos Warp, choosing green, and ended up having to pass the turn. Obzedat re-entered the battlefield at the beginning of Tristan's turn, draining 2 more life from Robert. He then cast Demonic Tutor, fetching up a card and putting it into his hand. Next, he cast Windborn Muse and went to combat, hitting Brionne for 5 points general damage with Obzedat. Obzedat once again left the battlefield as Trystan ended his turn. Before his turn began, however, Robert made a copy of Baleful Strix to draw a card. Robert untapped, taking 1 damage from the Blaze counter on Rupture Spire and played Breeding Pool tapped as the land for his turn. He then cast Wrath of God, clearing the board of everything including all of my plant tokens before passing the turn. Brionne took her turn, casting Stranglehold, but Robert countered it with Hinder. Brionne passed. I played a Forest on my turn and cast Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. As I cast it, I chose to destroy Robert's Mimic Vat, taking his pesky Baleful Strix to exile, but not before he activated it to draw a card off the Baleful Strix. I then cast Whispersilk Cloak and equipped it to my Ulamog, now having both Indestructible and Shroud, and could not be blocked. I ended my turn. Tristan's turn began with Obzedat once again entering the battlefield, and this time draining 2 life from me. Trystan then cast Vindicate, destroying my Whispersilk Cloak, following that up with a Nevinral's Disc. He declined going to combat and ended his turn. Robert untapped, taking 2 damage from the combination of a Blaze counter and his tapped mana vault. He cast Solemn Simulacrum, getting a much-needed land in the form of a swamp. He then cast Sensei's Divining Top, following it up with a Vasuva, copying Creeping Tar Pit, and passing his turn. Brionne tapped the majority of her lands in her turn to cast an overloaded Vandal Blast, clearing the board of everyone's artifacts except hers. Robert and Trystan both tapped to draw and save their tops in response, and Robert got to draw a card off of Solemn Simulacrum. After ticking everyone off, Brionne passed the turn. I played a Forest on my turn and went straight to combat with Ulamog, attacking Brionne. She sacked Great Furnace, Gate to Encampment, Darksteel Ingot, and a Mountain. I ended my turn afterwards. Obzedat once again entered the battlefield, draining 2 points of life from me. He then tapped out to cast Luminate Primordial, with me being the only player with a creature. Ulamog was exiled. Trystan sent Obzedat at me, dealing 5 points general damage to me and passing his turn. Robert recast Sensei's Divine Top in his turn and then played an activated Terramorphic Expanse, fetching up a Forest and putting it onto the battlefield tapped. He then cast Aethersworn Adjudicator and passed his turn. Brionne untapped and took her turn, casting Burning Inquiry. We each drew 3 cards and discarded 3 cards. With our newly formed hands, Brionne passed her turn. I cast Copperhorn Scout on my turn, had nothing else to do, and passed. At Tristan's upkeep, Obzedat returned to the battlefield and drained me for 2 life. Trystan then played a Plains and cast Soul's Attendant, following that with a recast of Sensei's Divining Top. Finally, he cast Conjurer's Closet and went to combat, swinging at me with Obzedat and Luminate Primordial for 9 damage, 5 of it being general damage. At the beginning of his end step, he chose to flicker Luminate Primordial, but I decided to remove Conjurer's Closet with the Beast Within, giving Trystan a 3/3 Beast. I knowingly decided to remove it at this time, giving Luminate Primordial 1 more bounce and an opportunity to remove Aethersworn Adjudicator, getting rid of my Copperhorn Scout in the process. Robert played no lands in his turn, cast Wormcoil Engine, and passed. Brionne drew and miracled a Reforge the Soul, emptying everyone's hands and giving everyone a new grip. Brionne then cast Lightning Greaves along with Kargan Dragonlord. She then proceeded to equip the Greaves onto Dragonlord and pass the turn. I untapped and, once again, cast the returning Akroma's Memorial, followed by a Seedborn Muse. I ended my turn. Obzedat entered the battlefield again and drained 2 life from Robert. Trystan then played Vault of the Archangel as his land for turn and went to combat, swinging at me with his team for 10. I blocked the Obzedat with my Prot Black Seedborn Muse and took 5 from the other 2 creatures. Post-combat, Trystan cast Obzedat's Aid, but Robert countered it with Counterflux and Trystan passed his turn. Robert played a Vivid Creek for turn and tapped 4 to cast Glenalandra Archmage. He then attacked Brionne with his Wormcoil Engine for 6, gaining 6. Post-combat, Robert cast Stranglehold and ended his turn. Brionne played a mountain on her turn and tapped 4 mountains to level Kargan Dragonlord 4 times. She then went at Trystan with the Dragonlord, hitting him in the air for 4 damage. Second main phase, she leveled the creature up 3 more times and ended. I played a forest and cast Wolfbriar Elemental, tapping all of my lands for his multi-kicker cost and making 10 wolf tokens, giving Trystan 11 life. I went to combat, hitting Trystan for 26 points of damage, bringing him back to the land of the mortals. Obzedat entered the battlefield, draining life from Robert this time. Trystan played a Plains for turn and went to combat, swinging at Robert for 10, but Robert cast Bant Charm, putting Obzedat on the bottom of Tristan's library. Main phase 2, Trystan cast Day of Judgment, clearing the board and leaving 2 3/3 worm tokens on Robert's side of the battlefield. Trystan then cast Living Death, exiling the 2 tokens and having everyone return their creatures to the battlefield from the graveyard. This caused tons of creatures to enter the battlefield and immediately die thanks to Elesh Norn. And with the help of Soul's Attendant, each creature entering the battlefield at the same time got Trystan all the way up to 65 life. With the added Enter the Battlefield ability of Luminate Primordial, Trystan left all of us with a handful of creatures to defend ourselves from his horde. Unfortunately, the camera died at this point, and so we couldn't show you what exactly happened at the end. But really, all you miss is Trystan gaining momentum with creatures, and the rest of us drawing no answers to his field, especially his Elesh Norn. He ended up killing all of us in 2 more of his turns. Thanks for watching this Commander gameplay. I hope you guys enjoyed it, even without the actual ending. Believe it or not, we do have more gameplays on the way, but due to many different factors, we just can't do them every week, even if we'd like to. Right now, we will try to get one to you every month, but we just can't promise anything. I'm Carson with Top Go Productions, and as always, thanks for watching.